Well, let's talk about the recent changes in Venezuela and what it means for the consumers, U.S. consumers, again, Venezuela's consumers. Without getting to the benefits of less drugs coming into our country, there are economic benefits from the large amount of oil reserves that are in the ground of Venezuela. The current daily consumption worldwide of oil is about 100 million barrels per day. That's 100 million barrels per day across the world. Venezuela has in their ground over 300 billion barrels of oil. That's a B with a billion. That alone would keep the world supplied for over 8 years. Just their own oil, they could keep the whole world going on oil just for 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, they do have the highest proven reserves in the world, even above Saudi Arabia, which I was kind of surprised by that. And Venezuela actually accounts for about 20% of the world supply of oil. And that's not, again, an ongoing supply. Right now, they're only producing very little, under actually a million barrels a day. I think that's around 1%, obviously.
Yeah, I've heard as low as 700,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year they averaged somewhere around that million barrels per day. So they're around that 1% production currently, but those proven reserves, again, about 20% of what we can see in the world. I mean, huge discrepancy there. Give you an idea of the numbers, Venezuela has 4 times the reserves compared to the U.S., yet in 2024, the United States produced over 13 million barrels per day, again, compared to Venezuela's around a million. And I think the Saudis are somewhere around 10 million barrels a day. So again, the most proven reserves, but a very low production compared to what they have in the ground there.
Yep. And there is talk about the big oil companies could be going into Venezuela, and that could definitely increase that production by a huge, I'll say a huge amount, which would benefit not only Venezuela, but also the world markets and the United States consumer. The way the United States consumer would benefit is from lower gas prices at the pump, and with oil currently trading around the high 50s, we'll call it, we could see that drop to the low 50s, maybe even below that, and that just means less at the pump. Chase, we are in California. Probably won't happen for California, but the rest of the country we're talking about as well.
Yeah, and the thing I look at, too, is we kind of just getting this news here, but President Trump did meet with oil companies on Friday, and he's now saying that they will spend at least $100 billion to rebuild Venezuela's energy sector. There's estimates from this group called Rystad Energy. This is the only estimate I've seen, but it says it will cost more than $180 billion through 2040 for Venezuelan production to reach 3 million barrels per day. So obviously, this infrastructure has to be somewhat outdated. I think Chevron's really the only company there that has some type of footprint. I kind of thought this was funny. Well, not funny, but interesting, I'll put it that way.
Better word.
Exxon came out and said, we've had our assets seized there twice. So you can imagine to re-enter a third time would require some pretty significant changes. You got to remember back in 2007, the company exited the country after the former president, Hugo Chavez, just seized their assets.
Yeah.
They just took them. So there has to be some type of benefit, I guess, for these companies or protections for these companies to go in there and be like, I don't want to invest, let's say, $20 billion and just lose all of that investment.
And it's funny you talk about seize the assets. Well, it's funny they seize the assets and the assets seized up because a lot of those assets are rusted. They're not working any longer. They spent no money on maintenance. That's why it's such, I think you said the number was $180 billion because the infrastructure is there. But it sounds like everything has to be replaced and rebuilt, which is a positive to some degree because production for oil companies now, they're much more efficient than they were back when they got that equipment. So that's a benefit. But the thing I didn't like hearing, I think you said 2044, 3 billion barrels a day. Was that what you said?
I think it was 2040. Yeah. 2040 to reach that 3 million barrels a day. So, I mean, that's a 14-year time period. I don't know if it's going to take that long. And I'm not an energy expert, and I don't know much about Venezuela. I think a lot of these companies don't know much about Venezuela right now either because they've probably been pretty unknown, I guess, about what is happening in that country, given that regime down there under Maduro. So, I mean, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some analysis. I think it's too early to give an estimate like that to say 180 billion over 14 years. I don't know. I think we need more information before actually giving firm details on that.
Yeah, and that just seems like somebody's opinion, which I think is, I don't think that's accurate. I'm not an oil expert, but it just seems illogical that you would spend all these billions of dollars and have over a 10-year time return on your investment. That just doesn't make any sense to me. I think that's way too long.
I agree with that, and I think especially you get Chevron full force down there. Right now, it's very limited capacity, but you get a Chevron down there, you get, a Halliburton, Schlumberger, you get, the full force of the American companies down there. I would be shocked if it took them that long to figure out how to get oil out of the ground.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. They're not going deep into the sea looking for this oil. They know it's there. It's going to be a much easier investment. So
Yeah.
I think this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of getting more news on what this Venezuela situation is going to look like. I think the bigger question is, how safe is that investment? I think that's going to need to be the answer for these companies before ramping up production.
And I think it's going to put a lot more money in consumers' pockets, right? U.S. consumer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing we look at right now is this is just all positive going forward. As I said, Venezuela is such a small player in the U.S., not the U.S., but the world oil market right now in terms of ongoing production. So anything coming online will be a benefit, which again should help with oil, gas prices, again, outside of California. But that should help, again, the U.S. consumers' pockets, but also, too, it should help the Venezuelan population as production of oil would create many good-paying jobs. Again, you're talking about hundreds of $1 billion potentially flowing into that economy to create those jobs and could lead to a ripple effect for other businesses with more money coming into their economy. The recent events, again, just occurred just a few days ago, a week ago, and a lot has yet to be played out. But make no mistake, there are many benefits if Venezuela can produce more oil for the world. And I don't know how Trump is going to do this. He makes a lot of these deals and he says things that you're like, how's that going to work? But I know he said they're going to get the oil, sell the oil, and then Venezuela is going to be buying U.S. goods with that oil. And we'll see.
Yeah, the whole thing, that ripple effect, I think it's more of a wave effect because you spend even $100 billion down there to get things going. That's going to create other jobs where you've got restaurants going to start opening up. You've got movie theaters. You've got shopping. You got so many things because people will then have money to spend, which they don't have now. And the other thing, I forget the rapid inflation they're having now is just destroying the economy. That will probably reverse down and be more normal. So it will get them. Won't happen in February, but I don't believe it'll take 14 years either.
Yeah, I mean, that's my big concern is I just don't know enough politically about how you can take out Maduro. And then we've seen this before in other countries, other systems where you remove the head of the snake, so to speak, but then it regrows a new head. So it's like, is there going to be a chance for stability or somebody else going to rise and kind of take Maduro's shoes? I hope that's not the case, but I think there are more questions to be answered, again, before these companies feel safe.
And the Venezuela people, they really want this.
Yeah.
I mean, they were cheering when this happened and so forth. So there is somebody else here that might want to try to step up, but I think they'll be out of the picture right away.
I hope so.
They're not going to last. Yeah,
I hope so. That would be great, again, for us, for Venezuela, and I think the world.
Yep, exactly.